Hey guys, it's Scott here and welcome to the first game week of my Premier League prediction series for the 16-17 Premier League season. Hopefully you do enjoy this one. If you do, please hit the thumbs up button down below and we can try and get as many likes as possible. So, in this video, I'm just going to be predicting the first set of results for this year's Premier League, as well as just a very quick Premier League full table prediction, okay? So, what you guys can do as well is sort of play along at home, I guess, and you can leave your predictions in the comment section down below. And then on Fridays, I think, is when I'm going to be doing my review of the week, so we can sort of see how it's gone, how my predictions fared with the real results, see if anyone in the comments did better than me, and we can maybe do a point system or something like that, and towards the end of the season, add up the tally of points and see who won from this channel. Okay, so we're going to start things off by going through the results for what I think are going to be this weekend's games. Okay, so we start off with the first game in the Premier League this year, which is obviously us playing away against Hull. Obviously, they wanted to get the champions. I don't know if you realise that, but last year we won the league. Just you might have missed it. So I think that this is going to be an interesting one because Hull right now have not got their manager. They've got a caretaker manager after sacking Bruce or whatever. They didn't really get along. And also, they have, I think, 13 fully fit / senior players available for our game today. So, compare that to us, where we've lost Kante, who is going to be a massive loss for us, like huge. I don't think that we'll get anywhere near the top of the league again. It's not a groundbreaking statement that. Everyone's telling me in streams saying, I don't think they'll win it again. Obviously. But I think that he is going to drop us a few places down the table as well because he was that good. He was by far our best player last year and one of the best players I've ever seen in a Leicester shirt. So, we did lose him, but we've brought in a couple of new signings and I think that we're looking okay. Obviously, we don't have Robert Huth for the first game. He is suspended. But hey, it's the first game of the season, it's early kickoff, anything could happen, that's why you never normally bet on it. But I think that right now, judging by how our teams are both looking, I'm going to go with us to win this. Obviously, Hull have just come back up from the Championship, so they've got that home advantage of their fans really wanting them to do well this year in the Prem. But I think that hopefully we're just going to be a little bit too good for them. Maybe Mahrez will actually do something awesome today. Who knows? Or Vardy could come back. Or Musa, who was a god against Barca. So let's go 3-0 us today. Very optimistic. I might be a little bit biased towards Leicester in this series. Just throwing it out there. Next we move on to Burnley versus Swansea. So, Burnley, the same situation as Hull, have just come up from the Premier League, to the Premier League from the Championship. But they did really well under Dyche, and they're going to have that massive home support against a sort of Swansea team that's a little bit all over the place. Losing Gary Monk, losing Ashley Williams, players like that. Bringing in people like Fernando Llorente could be pretty good. A lot of these sort of first few weeks, my results predictions are going to be based on whether I think the new signings are going to slot straight into the team and play well, as well as my full Premier League prediction for the table is going to be heavily based on that. For example, Kante last year for us came in and slotted right into the Premier League really well, whereas on the other hand, we also bought Gurkan Inler, who didn't fit in at all, and he hardly played in the whole season. So it's whether you're going to get one of those players or the good player that just instantly fits in. So we're going to go here with a Burnley 2-1 victory over Swansea. I think that home advantage is going to be really big. Gray hopefully is going to do quite well for them this year. That'd be nice to see if he can make that step up. Swansea, I think, may take a couple of weeks to sort of get themselves together. Next we move on to Palace versus West Brom. So two teams that sort of just sit there without doing too much each year, but they're just solid positions, okay? So, in this one, I think I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, because Palace, okay, they've signed a couple of players like Townsend, they're trying to get Benteke still, apparently, but they've not. It's just Palace, okay? They're just one of those teams. And West Brom, standard Tony Pulis side, isn't it? They just seem to get enough points to stay up by drawing or winning games like this, pretty much. So that's why I'm going to go with a draw in this one. Maybe Rondon will get a goal. Who knows? Next, we move on to Everton versus Tottenham, or Spurs in this case. And This is an interesting one because obviously Everton lost John Stones. Was he playing that much last year? Not a massive amount, but they brought in Ashley Williams to replace him. He won't be available for this weekend though. Is whether they can keep hold of people like Lukaku and whether they can actually be consistent this year. So that's what my prediction for the table is based on with Everton. Is if Lukaku could be consistent for the whole season, they could do very, very well. But he's not. He's very inconsistent. That's their issue. Spurs, on the other hand, again, it's going to be whether, because they've bought like Janssen to play at maybe alongside Harry Kane, how is he going to fit in? How are their team going to respond to sort of not quite doing what they expected last season and winning the league? It's going to be interesting to see, but I think keeping hold of people like Pochettino, Dele Alli, Harry Kane, etc. Is going to be big for them, especially their defence that was pretty solid last year, I think is going to be huge. So I'm going to go with 2-1 Spurs victory in this game. I think that they'll just edge it, okay? I think losing Koeman is going to be pretty big for Everton, but you never know. Could be a blessing in disguise. No, not losing Koeman. Gaining Koeman could be big for Everton is what I meant to say. I was on about Southampton, never mind. Okay, so yeah, Everton getting Koeman could be big this year, but I think he'll take a few weeks to sort of settle in order to really get his mindset in the players, okay? So that's why I think maybe for the first few weeks it may be a little dodgy for Everton. Next we move on to Borough versus Stoke. So Borough, obviously, another team coming up into the Premier League from the Championship, making quite a hell of a lot of signings, to be honest. And this is one of those big ones. Are they going to settle in quickly? Yes or no? You're bringing in people like Victor Valdez, Alvaro Negredo, some solid signings. It's just, will they fit the team or not? If they do, Borough could do quite well and easily stay up. If they don't, they're gonna struggle because they're gonna have to revert back to the team that they were using in the Championship and see whether that's gonna work in the Premier League. Stoke, on the other hand, not done a massive amount in terms of buying players or selling players. They've just sort of kept a solid squad that did well last season, and they're going to try and build upon that finish that they managed to get. So keeping people like Arnautovic, when he was heavily linked with teams like Everton, is pretty big for them, as well as Shaqiri and other players like that. So I think Stoke could do okay again this year. And I think that they'll win this game 1-0. Standard Stoke, just sort of smash and grab game right here. Next we move on to Southampton versus Watford. I think this Koeman loss, I mean, it could be devastating for them. You don't know how they're going to play under a new manager. But I think that because they've sort of kept their solid team, they've brought in a couple of people like Redmond, who potentially may be playing as a striker today alongside Shane Long. That'll be interesting to see. He has done in pre-season. Compared to Watford, who got rid of Flores, even though they did very, very well. Obviously, the second half and first half of Watford's seasons, massively, massively different. First half, they were doing really well, like top 8 or whatever, for quite a while. Igalo and Dini were smashing it. Second half of the season, not as good. So it's whether they come as a team that they were in the first half or second half. If they're going to continue their form from the end of last season, you can't see them doing incredible, but maybe Igalo and Dini will link up again and start doing really well. But I think in this game, Southampton are going to win 2-0. Next, move on to Man City. Probably the favourites for the league. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. Maybe Man U are. I don't know. It's going to be very tight at the top. Against Sunderland. So Sunderland obviously losing out on Big Sam, bringing in David Moyes, making a couple of signings so far, but nothing huge. But keeping hold of a few key players so far in like their defenders, and then also people like Jermaine Defoe, who are massive for Sunderland. But Man City have got Pep, and they've also brought in some awesome players as well. So I think that Man City are just going to waltz this game. I think most people are going to think that, expect it. At home, first game of the season, new manager, new players, big, big game to show their intent and statement for what they want to do this year in the Prem. I think they'll win 3-0. Next we move on to Bournemouth versus Man United as the first Sunday game of this year. And I think it's going to be similar in this one. Bournemouth haven't done too much, but this year hopefully they don't get as unlucky as they did last year with their injuries. Callum Wilson, who was it? What's his name? Max Gradle, and also Tyrone Mings, their massive, massive signing. all got big, long injuries at the start of the season, so it really scuppered their chances of trying to do much, really. So hopefully this year they don't get as unlucky. Man U, on the other hand, bring in Mourinho, bring in Zlatan, Pogba, who won't be able to play this game, but you get what I mean. Mkhitaryan, Bailey. They've had an incredible transfer window, and bringing in Mourinho is huge. I think they're going to be right up there at the top of the league this year as well, so I'm going to go with another 3-0 victory for a Manchester team right here. Then we move on to the first big Super Sunday game of the season, Arsenal against Liverpool. So in this game, Arsenal, they've brought in Xhaka. Okay, they may potentially bring in Mustafi. Apparently they're still interested in Riyadh, but they've only really brought in Xhaka. Now, he could be very good for them, but they still haven't brought in that top striker, so they may be playing Giroud there, they may be playing Sanchez there, even Walcott. No one really knows what Arsenal are doing in terms of not getting a striker. Whereas Liverpool have clearly got their intent sorted, bringing in people like Wijnaldum, Mane, trying to solidify that team and that squad. And under Klopp, after they've been with him for like a year now, I think they're really going to start to grow into his style, and I think Liverpool could do quite well this season. I thought quite a few people said that last year, but it's hard when a manager's just come in. I know that completely goes against what I've said for Pep, but Pep's a god. I love him. So I love Klopp as well, but still, I think the Liverpool team that he inherited are not as good as the Man City team that Pep's inheriting, obviously. So I think Liverpool could upset a couple of people this weekend and potentially beat Arsenal. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Liverpool here. Then we move on to Chelsea versus West Ham as the first Monday Night Football of this season and the last game in Game Week 1. So for this, Chelsea obviously bringing in Antonio Conte as their new manager, going to bring a different style to what they were playing last year, as well as bringing in players like Batshuayi, and of course they stole N'Golo Kante from us, didn't they, for 32 mil or whatever it was. So that's a huge signing for them, and he could be pivotal in them trying to win the league this year. So they've done very well, Chelsea. Obviously, they've tried to get people like Bonucci in to try and solidify the defence for how Conte wants them to play. Unfortunately, not been able to do that, but they've got a very, very solid team and what looks like a decent manager. So Chelsea are going to be up there as well. West Ham, on the other hand, have just sort of stayed where they are. They've made a couple of signings, like Andre Ayew, for example, for Gulli. But they've also kept their key players in people like Payet, who a lot of people thought was going to be snatched by someone like Real Madrid. But they've managed to keep him. So West Ham are going to try and build on what they did last season as well, which was very, very solid for them. Or just try and finish in the same sort of area in the league would be a good achievement for them, especially with all these big teams making the big signings in players and managers. Would be very solid for West Ham to finish in a similar position. But I think Chelsea might be a little bit too much for them, especially with that home support and advantage this weekend. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Chelsea in this. So I've got Leicester to win, Burnley to win, Palace West Brom to draw, Spurs to win, Stoke to win, Southampton to win, Man City and Man United both to get victories, Liverpool to win, and Chelsea to win as well. As you can tell, I don't really do draws. I never really bet on a draw. I will pretty much always go for a victory. So, leave your predictions in the comment section down below. And now let's very quickly have a look at my full, very quickly predicted Premier League table. Okay, so here it is for you right now. I have gone with the two Manchester clubs to finish as the top two. I think their new signings and managers are just massive for them. Chelsea third. I think the top three are going to be those three. They're like the most solidified positions that I would say are going to happen in this league, but I don't know the order. That's just what I've put for now, because if I was going to bet on it, I would put Man City to win the league, and then I don't know between the other two. But I think those three could easily flip around as the top three in this season. Next, I've gone with Liverpool. Now, I think that, like I said, they're new signings, and after being under Klopp for a little while, it's going to be big for them. So I think they could do quite well this season. It's whether they can stay consistent and also not get unlucky with injuries to people like Daniel Sturridge. Maybe Origi could step in. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think Liverpool could do quite well. Arsenal and Spurs propping up that top four right there. I think that they're both going to do quite well, but just not... they haven't done as much in terms of the transfer market and managers, etc., as the other teams have, so I don't think that they've had as much intent, especially Arsenal. I still think that they'll manage to finish above Spurs because they always seem to, no matter what happens. Even last year they managed to finish above them, so that's what I go with there. Next, West Ham, like I said, keeping hold of their squad and also making a couple of half-decent signings is pretty good for them, so I think that they could do okay. Everton bringing in Koeman and also keeping hold of their players, again, is going to be quite good for them. So I think they could do okay. It depends on how long it takes for Koeman's sort of tactics to break into the side. Next, I put us. Now, I sort of think that we'll probably finish 12th, but I would love a top half finish. I'd be very, very happy with that. Obviously, I don't think we're going to do anything like last season. That's never going to happen again. So I think because we've kept hold of most of our squad other than Kante and brought in a couple of decent players, we could do quite well. It just depends whether teams have sort of caught on to how we play and whether they're going to easily be able to defend it. That's going to be the key for us this season. But if we can stick together, have that same chemistry and desire that we had last year, I think we could do quite well. I'm not going to be ridiculously optimistic and say we'll finish in the top 4. I'm not going to be pessimistic and say that we're going to get relegated, because I really don't hope that we do. But I think that that is an okay position for us. Next, Southampton. I think they could do okay, but losing Koeman could be devastating, like I said before. So it's whether that will have a massive effect on them. Stoke, I think, like I said, same with Palace. They're just one of those teams that sort of sits there and does okay, and they just want to sort of solidify their place in the Prem as a solid team that are there to stay. Okay, Watford, I've sort of based this on whether they're going to play like they did in the first half of the season or second, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt that Igalo and Dini are going to do quite well. Bournemouth, I think, could do okay if they don't get unlucky with injuries. West Brom, they just stay up. That's what they do, especially with people like Rondon getting the goals for them. They just stay up. So most likely that is what's going to happen. I think Sunderland will stay up this year, potentially moving up a little bit away from that relegation zone. I think that obviously losing Big Sam could be big, but Moyes could be decent as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how well they do. And then we've got Middlesbrough and Swansea as 17th and 18th. Now, it's tough to call, isn't it? Swansea, it's whether their new signings are going to play well or not. Same with Middlesbrough. That's why I've put them two there, because if their new signings don't fit in, it's going to be very difficult to see how well they do. And then I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that I've put Burnley and Hull as the bottom two. I think that's going to be many, many people's predictions for this year. They just don't seem to have the squad depth or players to potentially do that well. They've got very, very good championship sides, but whether they'll do it in the Prem, we'll see. So that is my prediction for the Premier League and my predictions for the first weekend or game week of this Premier League season. So leave your predictions in the comment section down below. You can leave your league table as well if you want to, but that is going to be it from me. We will review this at the end of the week. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.